Hey Bookworms, it's Jenna. We're going to do our final project for the last of the Mohicans. We've got our really pretty bear canvas with the light up background. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And I'm going to show you how to get started with that, okay? So let me get that to the side here. And then let me get some lights on because I made it dark so you could see the cool lights. So I'll probably flash with the light coming on. All right, let's see, make sure everything's in focus. All right, we're good. So I have your tracer that you should have got in your box, and then your carbon paper. And I taped mine down at the bottom, so that way if anything hung over is the top there. And then I have already pre-traced this, so if you need to, go ahead and stop the video and pre-trace this. Just remember carbon paper shiny side down. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. And then I am going to trace this with my permanent marker, my Sharpie here. And what this is going to do, I'm not going to do the sky part because that's just, I don't need that as much. That can be sort of more freehand. But I don't want to lose my bear here as I get my paint on the canvas. So then I get him on here. He doesn't have to be perfect. But I just don't want this this drawing to be like covered up with my paint. So this is a technique I use pretty regularly. I'm probably not gonna worry about the rest of this detail because I always like to sort of freehand some of it. So we're going to make sure we get our bear on there, and then other than that, I'm going to go ahead and get some of that up in there. Okay. Other than that, I'm not too worried about losing the rest of it because we can look at our tracer, and you can watch along as we go through this. Okay, so I'm going to grab a bigger flat brush. I need to grab some paper towels as well. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the sky. And I want to, let's see, I think I want to start with my white first. And I'm going to go, so you're not going to see a whole lot of this. I'm just going to go right at the back of the bear there and get my white put in right in there. Now just remember, I have an original here, and then this is going to be my second one. It is not going to look exactly like mine, so don't get worked up over that piece, right? And I've got a little bit of blue there. I'm going to go right above that and work that white and blue together. I'm going to grab a little bit of water so I can get a nice smooth gradient. So you can see I've got like an ombre going on there. Pick up a little more white. Alright, so there's our horizon we've created. And then I have a dark blue that I'm going to go right above with that. Again, I just picked it up on the corner. You can see I'm taking full strokes all the way across. Pick up some more of this blue. So this is I forgot to go through my colors. I've got the burnt umber, I've got a medium green, yellow, white, light blue, really dark blue, and a black. Almost forgot to go through all that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some black, so I'm going to go across the top there. And then I'm going to make this sort of thin this out a little, the black. So this will be our last one that we trace on. From now on, unless you guys decide you want something different, let me know, of course. We will do ones that are pre-printed, which I'm actually super excited about. I think we'll be able to get some really cool detail doing that and not have to worry about making it perfect. some of the stress of painting will be gone with the pre-printed one, so I'm excited to do that with you guys. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's see. So I used most of my blue for this. I'll probably have to get some more because I do use blue quite a bit through this whole thing. So through my original, let me pull this down a little quick. You can see I've got like some navy dark blue down in here too, and even on the bear itself. So we're gonna get some of that going since we have a lot of that, sort of like the whole thing of the painting here. It's like a lot of blue and dark colors. All right, so I've got some more of my blue there, and I'm gonna get the blue color down here. And I have not washed my brush, so it still should be pretty dark. And I'm not going to worry about my my plants right there. I'm going to carve in my rock that I've got there. And I'm okay with going right over my bear because I'm actually going to sort of pull some of that color up into him. Okay. We've got our bush there. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. Now I am going to, I'm going to use some of this dark blue. I'm going to switch to my flat, smaller brush. And I'm going to put some of this dark blue and black down on for my bear. Because this is sort of like the shadow of everything I'm doing is with this dark blue here. So I'm going to pull that up into the bear there. So I'm just going up his legs. And then I'm going to sort of get some texture. See how I'm sort of turning my brush sideways and stroking that upward. And with the bear, we're going to add a lot of layers, a lot of color layers. And then I will show you in another video how I put the lights on, but you can really there's a few different things, and I'll give you a couple ideas. So you can see I'm putting this on a whole lot thicker than I did for the rock in the sky. And I don't want to lose his leg here. Okay. All right. Now, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the black. And I'm going to start down at the feet and darken those up real well. And this should eventually make like a nice pretty navy color. And the back leg back here will be darker. And I've got the stomach right in there. I'm going to make these two legs look much darker because they're like sort of behind, right? And I've got like a little bit of a curve right here where his leg comes down. So you can see I went up this front leg here and then across underneath the belly and then down that back leg. One's in the foreground. And then on the legs that are closest to us, we're going to start at the foot and sort of work that up. All right, so now I've got enough black on there that I want to rinse my brush. And then now I'm just going to use some of that water to sort of blend that black into the blue there. Okay. I'm going to take some of this darkness up underneath his chin here. Touch of that black again right under in here. And then we can always go back and add more to that too. I am going to darken up just in here just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it though because I don't want to lose. There we go. All right. I like him. Okay, so now we've got most of the blue and basis on, which I think maybe all of it even. All right, so I'm going to continue to work on my bear. So the next color I want to do, I'm going to use a little bit of the light blue actually and continue upward with that. And then we're going to let these colors sort of blend. And then we'll layer the warmer colors on top here in a little bit. I might actually, I'm thinking about it. I might actually put some of these colors on before it dries completely. Okay. Bring my paper towel over here so I'm not pulling it over my canvas. All right. I'm going to rinse my brush pretty good, and I think I'm going to put like a yellow base down for the top part of the bear. So I'm going to grab some of my yellow. I'm going to start up here. So I chose a bear because there's lots of black bear up in the northern New York area, even down to where I live. They're actually, I just saw today, they were releasing baby black bears in southern, I don't know, so I'm in southwest Ohio, but I don't know if it's southern southwest or southeast, but they said southern Ohio. So to help with the coyote population, because apparently I guess that's getting out of control. I don't know. We used to have black bear in this area a lot, I guess, and then for some reason they like migrated out of the area. So you can see right now I'm pulling that blue, and I'm just using my brush up and down and creating that texture there. So the only thing I want to be careful of, like right in here, see how I got a little bit crazy with that blue? So what we're going to do, I'm just going to pull up, so that way I get a little bit up there that way, and then here in a second I'll pull down, so that way I'm not going back and forth and just sort of muddying it. I don't want to get it too crazy through here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave that there, and then we'll add the burnt umber here in a little bit, and some white and highlight and some other things. Okay, so we want that guy to dry a little more. We're going to work on the background area here, this white space, which I made more of like just greenish, very more like impressionistic looking. So I'm going to again take my yellow. I'm going to start more up here because I want this brighter up in this area. Still, I'm using my same brush. I rinsed it out really nice. And then I'm going to turn it sideways and sort of pull upward. Think of grass as you're doing this. So grass, trees, whatever you think. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the yellow the rest of the way down. Got to get over here too. all the rest of this yellow space, or white space, I'm going to fill with yellow. All right, I'm gonna grab some of my green. I'm not gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna start down in here. Right along that rock, and then I'm gonna pull upward. And most of this painting that I'm doing right here, I want to be able to see the strokes. I want it to be, like I said, a little impressionistic, so I'm not going to blend a whole lot. It's the look I'm going for. Now all I'm going to do is add some texture in here. And I want it a little lighter as it goes up in here. So you can see my brush is getting drier so that the paint's not as heavy up in there. And then just using lighter pressure and less paint, that gives you that look up in there. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush out again. I'll probably go back and add some white to that here in a little bit. Okay, so we've got a lot of our bases on now, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get my base for my tree here, or I'm sorry, my bush. And I'm just gonna use the straight green. And I'm gonna sort of just like blob it on there. Still using my small flat brush. And I'm just tapping to get the texture. Okay. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of my yellow, just with my same brush, not cleaning it, and I'm gonna just tap some yellow on the top there to give it a little bit of a highlight look. Okay, and I grab some white, same thing, tap it right on the top there, and around the edge. And then I'm gonna pick up some black, and I'm gonna tap the black down at the bottom. And all this paint is still very wet, so it's sort of, I'm gonna rinse my brush so that I don't get too crazy with the black. so it sort of melts the colors together. And then I'm going to just tap with a wet brush. Grab a little more green. Okay. Grab some more white. There we go. All right. Pretty happy with that so far. Now the next thing I want to do, let's see, check my bear. He's pretty dry. Rinse my brush again. And I'm going to go in with that, I cannot remember this color. Burnt sienna. There we go. The reddish brown color. Okay, so this is where we're going to start getting some detail in here. So I'm going to layer my brush up, and then I'm going to use it like that to create textures. Go around his ear there. And you want to see the other colors coming through. And we're just going to keep layering the paints at this point now. Now that we got our basis there. You can see all the colors coming through. It's in my brush a little bit. Go around his ear here. That yellow underpainting looks really neat with the burnt umber. Hit right along the edge of my bear to define him a little better. I'm going to do the same thing with his face. Right along the edge. And hit a little of this color right under here where the belly is, so that I can get a little highlight on the back, that back leg there. Same thing on this one here. There we go. We'll hit the edge there. There we go. Look how cool he's looking. All right, I'm gonna grab a little more. Let's see. I love how this looks over top of the blue. All right, and then I'm gonna grab some yellow. I'm gonna hit the top of them up here a little more. A little bit of blue. I'm going to pull some more up in here to break that up a little more. So basically you just play with the colors until you really like them. This part's really fun for me. And then I'm going to let them dry a little bit more because there's some white and a little more texture I want to add around the face especially. I'm going to rinse my brush out really good. And then we can go ahead and work on the the sky up here and get some of the swirls. Let me pull my original back so you can see. We got the swirls. I did like some black and white in there. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've got some water on my brush. I'm going to pick up some of this black. And then you just sort of freehand how you want to do this. Okay, so there's one of my curls. And I'll go right here with this one. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush out. So there's no paint. And I'm just going to work that around. So there's no paint on there, right? I put the paint on and then I rinse my brush. Okay. All right, I'm going to rinse my brush really good, get that off, and then I'm going to do the same thing with some white. Rinse my brush off again. And melt those colors together. Okay. So there's our swirly night sky. Let's see. What else do I want to do? Oh, we need to do the rocks down here. So let me get a little more blue. I see some white spaces in my canvas down here. All right, and then I want to grab some black, and we're going to create some like shapes in the rocks. So I'm just going to create some shapes like that. They're more geometrical looking to make them look sharp. So create like more edge, like sharp edges. And then we're going to put some dark underneath our bear there. And then same thing over here. So you just want a little more, like almost like a harsher line. And then I'm going to add some shade underneath my bush there as well. Add some shade under my bear. And I'm going to grab some blue and blend some of this. And rinse my brush out. It's a little too dark still. And I grab my big brush. I'm going to darken this up down here a little more. I'm going to be careful not to hit that. There we go. Okay, so now that I've got that on there, I'm going to put some highlight onto my rocks too to make that stand out a little better. Grab a clean paper towel. So some white. I'm going to pick up a little blue too, some of that light blue. I'm going to along the edges of the rocks. Okay. Got a little more texture there in our rock then. You can see it looks nice and jagged. Okay. Mix a little bit of my green. I'm going to give a little bit of this burnt umber. I'm going to add some brownish colors to my bush here. I feel like it needs broken up a tiny bit. There we go. I'm liking that. Okay, cool. Much better. All right. Doesn't look so flat now. I'm going to rinse my brush really good, and I think my bear, for the most part, is pretty dry. So I'm going to add some of my white, especially right around the muzzle. Right in this area. And I'm going to start from his nose and pull back. And then I'm going to go around his eyes, right underneath, and sort of pull down a little bit. Get some texture there. Around his eye there. So you can see that. And then I'm going to add what's left on my brush up here, just to get another layer of highlight. I'm going to add some more of my burnt umber. So my original, I just like kept playing with the layering and the streaks after I got that base layer on. All right. Rinse my brush again. I'm going to add a little more white into the muzzle again. And then we're getting pretty close to being done. So I want to add a little more right in this area. And a little more of the burnt umber. Okay. And then we have, I'm going to switch to my round 5 to make some of the little leafy, like, greenery down here. And I am going to mainly use my burnt umber for this, actually. And I'm going to just sort of stamp my brush, so to make leaves. Got a lot of water in there. Okay, I need to add a little more yellow and burnt umber to my palette. Okay, and I'm going to do a few more of those. So I've got a few over here. So I'm sort of switching this up from my original. That's why I didn't want to have to worry about putting that on there, because I'm one of those people that can't do the same thing like more than once. Okay, I like that. We're gonna let those dry a little bit more, and then I'm gonna add the highlight of the yellow. So I'm only gonna let them dry for a minute because I don't want to go. See, I just can't leave my bear alone. I don't want to go too crazy with it. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead, so I've got my dot tool. I know you guys have seen that. I'm gonna use that for some of my stars. Dog just shoved himself in my room. I lock him out of here because he crunches on its food while I'm painting. He likes to eat with me. My husband, I just heard him get home, so if he hears somebody being loud, he likes to be loud. Especially on Fridays. He always likes to yell for the kids when he gets home. All right. So there's our stars. And I'm going to touch up his muzzle just a little bit more. Oof, lots of water. There we go. All right, so now that these leaves are a little more dry, I'm gonna take some of this yellow and do the same thing right on the inside there. It's not completely dry, so those two paints are mixing just a little bit. It gives you sort of a good texture with the leaves. Okay. Now I am going to use my brush pen. If you don't have like a marker or a paint pen, then you need to let this completely dry and then use a Sharpie or a marker. But you can't do that right on your paint if it's not completely dry, because that will ruin your marker, which I like to do a lot. So I'm going to hit this with my heat tool really quick and get some of this dried down, and then I can move forward. You guys can just let yours dry if you need to. Alright, so this is the last little bit. I'm going to use my brush tip side of my paint marker, and I am going to just get my detail of my bear on here. And this is just sort of where it all comes together. I'm going to skip over that for a second. All right, so the bush, how I did this is sort of cool. I use just the tip of my brush, and I do a bunch of little squiggles. And I don't lift my brush up, or my pen up, and then I just continue on with that. I just thought this looked so cool. Okay, put these in. Okay, let's see. Anything else I want to do? I don't think so. I think that's it. Let's see. There we go. A little bit of a different look there around his face. I'm gonna blend that out a little bit while it's still wet. There we go. Okay, and then I do want to put a little bit of a white dot in his eye. I don't think I did that on the original. I'm gonna give him a highlight. There we go. And then I want to round his muzzle out just a tiny bit with some white right in here. All right, so that is the paint part, and then there's one little other thing you can do, which I like to teach to give it like a vignette look. So you take your big brush, and then you go right along. Let me see if I can see how this is going. So you go right along the edge, like that. I'm trying not to hit my camera. And then you pull it inward. So and you do that all the way down so you can see it starts to create like a vignette and looks really cool. And then you just really cover this edge really well. And then here, let me pull my original down so you can see. Got the edge there, and then you can see where it's like pulled around the whole way around. And then I will show you how to do this in another video, but that is your bear there. Give a little bit of a, I feel like he's missing something right in here, like a eyebrow almost. There we go. Needed some shade in here. There we go, I like that better. And then give him his mouth back a little more. All right, so there is our cute little bear. Okay, awesome. I'm excited to see your guys's. I hope you liked this impressionistic type nature painting of our black bear, and then I will love to see yours. And like I said, I will post another separate video on how I put the lights in. So, okay, I am looking forward to it, guys, and I can't wait to see yours. I'll see you soon.